It's might be the most integral of them all.
And as always, I'm thinking about ratio.
Oh boy.
Well, there's not enough leaders at the socials. The ratio was terrible. I don't like the ratio.
And now I'll be like, oh my God, where are the leaders? And then I started walking around and there was a lounge area. And there they were sitting, sleeping, lounging, just talking with people.
Yeah, think about leaders as cooks or chefs with the same amount of ingredients to make 30 meals in one night.
You see that it is a wicked problem. Lots of moving parts, high complexity, some competing elements, right? Which is something really hard.
Followers feel more pressure to do well and to execute everything to perfection on the later stages, where the leaders feel more pressure to do everything super correctly and comfortably at the early stages.
One of the reasons why sometimes followers come for private lessons to learn more is very simply, I want to get invited to this more often. What if you try a little less hard?
Hello, bom dia, everyone, and welcome back to another episode. My name is Alisson Sanji, and our amazing co-host, Gui Prada.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
Well, in this episode, we'll continue with our experiment where we read some of the questions and comments in our Facebook ZoukNerds group and answer as if this was a Q&A, one-on-one conversation, person to person, right here to share our experiences and maybe something that might help you. So, Guy, what is the question for this episode?
This might be the most integral of them all.
Yeah.
It's a question from Billy Liu from last year, December 16, where he says that he's doing a leadership course and he was introduced to the concept of a wicked problem, which is a problem that is difficult or impossible to solve because of incomplete, contradictory, and changing requirements that are often difficult to recognize. High complexity, lots of moving parts, probably some competing elements like a transparency and so on. So, what would people say are the biggest wicked problems in the Zouk scene right now? Why are they wicked problems?
Where do we start?
Well, I don't know. Do you want to start?
Yes, let's go. And I can think of one at the top of my head, which I'm already thinking about on a daily basis because I'm the organizer for BraZouky. And as of now, in just over 2 weeks, we'll be having BraZouky in Australia. And as always, I'm thinking about ratio.
Oh boy.
BraZouky is a worldwide festival that we always, since day one, control the ratio very, very strictly. And we don't offer night passes or day passes or anything like that. If you want, you come for the full experience. And yes, we hold passes when we need other passes to match. But even with controlling the passes and at some years having as close as possible to one-to-one ratio, I do have the formula there that shows me 1.1, 1.2, 1 point something. When it comes to the social, especially this social, what do we do? Okay, so what happens usually is in the beginning of the night, we have lots of leaders, not enough follows. And then in the middle of the night, of the social, we have, I would say, a good ratio of both and everybody's happy. But then when it comes to maybe the third to the fourth quarter, leaders gone, followers still there. And then the problem comes with the follows who came late to the party. They came to the second half of the party and they see everybody busy, everybody going, but then more and more and more, they see less leaders to dance with. And then, of course, they share the feedback with us and tell us, well, there's not enough leaders at the socials. There's not enough leaders. The ratio was terrible. I don't like the ratio. And then we're like, I
did my best.
We cannot control who shows up at the social, at what time they show up at the social. So, well, if I can share my feedback and my suggestion is, especially for socials where you find that there is this problem, come early. Come early. At District Zouk in DC and in many other communities that I've been visiting or helped being part of, I noticed this. This is sort of a pattern where leaders show up earlier. At the start of the social, you have more leaders.
Yes.
We do have, we have discussed about this and we do have our theories about it. Most of the times we agreed that leaders want to come early because they want to get warmed up. They want to practice their moves before the social really kicks in and everybody arrives. So they have that interest of being there early. But they're there early and they dance nonstop until, let's say, the middle of the social. And most of the times, those are the same leaders that have already done a ton of classes on that same day. So let's say by 12 a.m., 1 a.m., they are dead. Body, mind, soul, feet, joints, muscles, everything. Now, on the other side, you have the follows who will be showing up a little later, usually. And when they show up, they already don't have as many leaders to dance with. And because of that, they take longer breaks, not because they want to, just because of how the social is working. So they don't get as tired as early as the leaders, which means they will stay until 3 or 4 a.m., but they're not going to get as many dances. So how to solve this problem, I still don't know. But all I can do is to try and make sure that at least at sign up, through the door, we have the same amount of leads and follows. And to be honest, I do have other tricks up my sleeve when it comes to festivals. There are things that we do our best to help with, which is to make sure that we invite our own volunteers and our own staff and team at certain moments to really bring up the energy of the social and do their best to, instead of dancing with somebody who has been dancing, but go around the room and invite other people to dance, especially if they've seen that person there sitting down for a long time while they are dancing. So that's something that can help, but that is a wicked problem.
Man, it is the wickedest of the problems.
Multiply by 100.
Yeah. Interesting thing, in a marathon, in a few marathons that I participated, the organizers sold the exact same amount of tickets. They were all there. And I was in that marathon as a taxi dancer. I was there to dance with as many followers as possible for a certain period of time. Loved it. Was super amazing. While I was there, I was also in my observation modes. And it was really interesting because, like you were saying, even with taxi dancers, I think it was me and 2 other leaders, we still had a line of followers waiting to dance. And I'll be like, oh my God, where are the leaders? And then I started walking around and there was a lounge area. And there they were sitting, sleeping, lounging, just talking with people. And that was really interesting. I wish, actually, now that we're thinking about it, that we could have like a leaders summit, that we could all sit down and talk. And so we can understand better why. And this is something, why is the wicked problem? Because this is something that is happening at all levels in most places. We're not talking about the beginners here who we know, have a harder time. We're talking about experienced people. Yes, we're talking about 150 leaders and 150 followers and 150 more experienced leaders who are still more collected than the followers in the social dance environments.
Yeah, I mean, like most of the times we don't really get beginners in a marathon.
No, exactly. It will be too much for them.
So if you're signing up for a marathon, you're pretty well invested in the community. You've been to enough socials. You know how the system or the engine and the society of social dancers work.
And the interesting thing too is, why is that a wicked problem? Because it's also a wicked problem at the scene's leadership level at the scenes management level. Guys, we're talking about in general here, yeah? Because I know there are these very particular cases of scenes that we do have more leaders than followers.
We are not pointing any fingers here.
They exist. I know. I've been there. I've lived in there. And I have had the experience of sitting down in a social and nobody comes to invite me to dance because they're all dancing. Magical days, magical moments. And that I could sit down and watch. At the leadership level of a dance community, we also do have a majority being followers, a majority being women as well. And something that is really interesting, even in the District Zouk core team, we needed to, shut the gates for new primary followers to join the core team. Because we are at a situation that we have 18 people and 3 of them are leaders. And more people want to come in and they're all followers. So the people who want to become assistants, want to become teachers, the people who want to be in some shape or form participating in the growth of their community are followers too.
To be clear, the core team of our school that we're talking about, the assistants, the teachers, the trainees, the DJs, the admin, everybody who makes the whole machine work. We call that the core team.
Core team, yeah. And when I think about other scenes as well, a majority of them are followers. I can think about 3 scenes right now who the 2 main teachers are 2 primary followers, where one of them is learning how to lead. So, they can have the lead and follow situation.
And I actually would even say, I don't know if this is related, but I personally, me, myself, and I, and everybody in my head loves those communities because they're usually the best ones run.
Yeah.
Best run by the followers. Just a side note on that one.
Yeah, every city that pops up in my head is oh yeah, that again.
You just look at my calendar. Pretty much all the communities that I travel and work with, they're run by followers.
Yeah. And I think we have discussed, and everybody and their mothers and their family have discussed why we don't have enough leaders in general in the local scenes, in the Brazilian Zouk, global scene, exception of some of these places that we saw here in our comments where the leader passes sell fast. And this is something really interesting because when I think about, for example, the entry bar, for example, the moment in which a dancer feels comfortable to attend a social or in a more, at a later stage, feel comfortable to attend a full-on event. It's very hard for a beginner leader to buy a pass to a full-on event unless they are embedded with this courage or with this, I'm just going to go enjoy life. Most people are feeling insecure. Most people think that their skill sets are not developed enough for them to go out and social dance for 4 days, and take classes and stuff. So it's really important to understand, generally speaking, that it's more likely for a beginner follower to go to socials, to go to big events from early stages in their social dance life than it is to a beginner leader. And I do think that at times, the beginner leader or even the more advanced leader, depending on how you look at it, might also get tired quicker, maybe because of the amount of things that they are managing. It's almost like this silent process that is happening in the back. Music, space, floorcraft, leads, dance, all these things are going on. And it might be that the person might get tired quicker or might get overwhelmed quicker. And tired quicker, not necessarily physically tired, but more mentally tired. Because a leader is stuck with their own movements and their own dance over and over again. The follower gets to experience more movements, more variety in terms of vocabulary, more often than the leaders are. So there is this aspect, I think, of mentally tired or mentally exhausted that might happen. And that's the thing that I think happened in the marathon that I was there, where I have even passes, still a long line of followers on the floor and a bunch of leaders sitting down, sleeping, chatting, hanging out, So I think it might be something like that.
Yeah, I mean, like, think about leaders as cooks or chefs with the same amount of ingredients to make 30 meals in one night.
Yes.
So they only have the same amount of ingredients and maybe techniques and equipments in the kitchen, but they need to make 30 plates. They can choose to make the same menu, the same offering for all the 30 plates, so they can choose to be creative and multiply and do something. But it gets really tiring. Imagine that, you either feel bored with your dancing, which is a problem if you make 30 of the same plate, or you feel really, really exhausted and tired very quickly because you're trying to make a new excellent plate every single time.
Yeah. And adding up to the wickedness, to the wicked aspect of this, is thinking about classes. So sometimes we are in a class and we have 2 leaders for every follower. And then you go to the social, you have 3 followers for every leader. But in class, there's a lot of leaders, and then, but still. So I think the leaders might need a safer environment for a longer period of time until they develop their confidence. And then there's this other very interesting thing as well. At times, the classes end up being more leader-focused. And they end up becoming more leader-centric because it's natural for us to have a class that we look more to the leader and then another one that we look more to the follower. And then at times, subconsciously, because we see how fragile the presence of the leader is in that situation, we give more attention to the leader. And even in that situation, the followers still are, by default, in general, more consistent in class. They keep coming, and they come again, and they keep coming. And the leaders, even with the focus, even with the leader-centric approach, at times, they are still more flaky. You see that it's a classic, it is a wicked problem. Lots of moving parts, high complexity, some competing elements, right? Which is something really hard. And then there's one more, the cultural thing. We are here in Asia, where the racial problem is really intense.
Yeah, depending on the country, you can multiply by 10, by 100. Some countries in some regions, not so much. But yes,
right.
For sure.
Exactly. I was at an event in Japan, and there was easily double digits number of followers more than leaders at a social or at an event. So there's the cultural aspect to it. And then we are now associating a little bit more the role with the gender, where normally the leaders are guys and the followers are women, where it's easier for a woman to come to social dance than it is for a guy, culturally speaking, depending on, where you're from, So all these high complex elements compiled together to create this as old as time issue, which is the presence of leaders. When I was at Jaime Arôxa in Botafogo, Rio de Janeiro, why the Bolsista existed, why I was the Bolsista 151. My number, I was the 151st Bolsista of the school out of a total team of around 300 people, where maybe 50 of them were followers. All the rest were leaders.
Bolsistas are like the helpers, kind of trainees, interns that are there for the classes. And some of them, of course, training up to be a teacher. This the same way I started as Bolsista. If you are a leader, or back then, as long as you enter the school and you say, I want to lead, that's it. You got a position on that day.
Immediate. Yeah, that was my case. That day, I came in to see how the program worked. And Jaime asked, are you ready? And then we got into the room right away. And there I was thrown into the jungle right away. And there were classes that we had, I kid you not, 30-something followers and 2 leaders. All the other followers, Bolsistas were there doing the class with them. So even in Brazil, even in Rio, that we have an abundance of people social dancing, we had a problem.
And it's not a cultural problem to dance in Brazil. I mean, at least not in Rio. Some states, maybe.
Country size, might be this issue, but in Rio, not so much. Then it flipped because at a higher level, we had less followers and more leaders. I remember having a hard time finding a partner to practice because there are not enough followers.
Yeah, maybe I can share this to conclude. When I talk about this reverse learning curve from the leaders to the followers, I find that from my experience, and this is really just some observation, that at the beginning, followers seem to have an easier time. So it goes from easier to harder, whereas the leaders seem to have a harder time, and then it gets easier over time. This middle section here is when everybody's like sharing that struggle. But at the beginning, usually followers are kind of like, oh, I'm so bored with these classes. I'm not learning enough. I'm not moving fast enough or something like that. Yes. Yep. And leaders are like surviving, breathing heavily, sweating, and just like trying to really keep up with the classes.
Yeah.
But then it gets to a point where we see that in our classes and sometimes in the workshops and weekenders, where the leaders, they already start the class and they're already like feeling like, yeah, I'm comfortable with this. I'm more comfortable with that. Whereas I feel like the struggle is more on the follower side, especially socially. When a leader gets to a certain level of experience, I'm not saying intermediate, advanced, professional, but let's say when the leader has been dancing for 3 years, whether they are a beginner of 3 years or not, they feel more comfortable dancing with pretty much anybody from any level. Now, as a follower, it doesn't usually happen the same way. They are not so comfortable dancing with all the levels because it's almost like, from the feedback that I get from the followers, is that they feel more pressure. So followers feel more pressure to do well and to execute everything to perfection on the later stages, where the leaders feel more pressure to do everything super correctly and comfortably at the early stages. So there's so many problems in this. Like, for example, leaders getting overconfident when they're not good enough on the later stage. That's a problem. And some followers also getting overcritical at some stages or overconfident. There's lots. But just talking about some interesting observation that I've seen over the years on how the difficulty or the perceived difficulty and the level of pressure is really different for leaders and for followers at different stages of their dancing.
Yeah, it's like in talking about the followers, when a more experienced follower comes to me for a private lesson or for advice, normally the thing I say is, what if you try a little less hard? Because they fell into this thing. I need to be perfect. Spot on. Every step that I take is flawless, So it's more like bringing back to. I think in the end, the wicked problem, it might be something related to what people think is necessary or what is considered enough for you to go out to a social, to an event, because on the leader side, man, I need to know all this much. I need to be mastering all these things here in order to be able to go out. And when they're out, I need to deliver all this much over and over and over and over and over and over again, which is tiring. And then on the follower side is something similar to that. I need to understand really well every cue. I need to be perfect in every sense in order for people to want to dance with me. Like, one of the reasons why sometimes followers come for private lessons to learn more is very simply, I want to get invited to dance more often. So they put more training in, they put more hours in. And it's very sad sometimes when it comes to private and I ask, how is it going? And they said, yeah, I'm still not getting many dances, So This ratio problem, man, might be the big one, and might be the big one for a while.
Or maybe, hopefully, AI will solve it. Who knows?
Who knows?
Just kidding, guys.
Unless we have a huge cultural shift, unless we have some big change, it's going to be hard for Brazilian Zouk, man. It's going to be hard.
Yes. So with that, let's say thank you to Billy Liu for this beautiful post and conversation here on ZoukNerds. And if you want your question or post to be shared here by us in our Q&A 101 conversation, please share them on ZoukNerds, and we'll be back here to talk about it. So thank you, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.
See you next time.
Beijos, beijos, abraços. Tchau.